Hey guys, I'm here in the garden in my mango tree. This is a Harvest Moon mango tree, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do an air layer, but I'm going to talk about the mistakes that people make when they do air layers, and also talk about why we do air layers. But I really want to focus on the mistakes that people make when they do air layers, because I've been making some mistakes for a long time, and thanks to my good friend Andy, I think that my success rate is going to improve dramatically. Right now, I probably have about a 50-60% success rate with my air layers. Sometimes I'll unwrap it and I don't have roots, or I don't have enough roots. But I know what I've been doing wrong, and I'm going to show you guys what I did wrong and how to correct it, okay? Because it starts really with understanding what an air layer is and why you're air layering. So for me, I air layer so I can create a clone of the tree that I already have. So this is a Harvest Moon mango, and I am going to take this branch off and I'm going to plant this branch eventually. But I also want to prune this tree. So if you have branches that you want to prune or remove from a tree, then a great way to do it is to go ahead and air layer it. That way you're going to remove the branch that you want to remove, but you're also going to create a brand new tree. So this is the branch that I want to remove. So instead of just cutting this branch off and throwing it away, I'm going to turn this branch into a new tree, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my grafting knife, and I'm going to find a spot where I want to cut all the way around the bark. Now, one of the things that I was doing wrong before, so mistake number one, is not going deep enough, okay? And the reason I didn't go deep enough is because I didn't understand what we were doing with this cut. So we're making a first cut, and then we're gonna make a second cut, and all we really need is about an inch and a half. And that was mistake number two. I was making my cuts too far apart, and I was creating too wide of a space, which isn't sort of a deal breaker because it'll still work, but you really don't need to go that far out. So I'm gonna cut nice and deep into there, and then I'm going to remove the bark. Now the key is you have to remove the cambium as well. Now, one of the things that I didn't understand was that if you leave any of the cambium, which is the layer right under the bark, intact, then the tree will just heal. So what you've got to do is create a space where there's no way for this cambium to be intact and for this tree to just heal here. We want this to be sort of like an island. You want to cut off this top branch's communication with this bottom branch. Not really totally, but kind of in a way. And when you do that, that's what's going to allow this cambium at the top here to differentiate and create your roots, okay? Because the goal is for this to create roots, but what I didn't understand was the roots are going to come from up here. But if you leave enough cambium intact, it will just regrow bark and it will just come back and heal. So give me a minute here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this all the way around, and you want to get it completely all the way around. You don't want to leave anywhere. So you really can go, I don't want to say deep as you want, but you can err on the side of deeper as opposed to the side of less deep. And I'm going to have this, and you can air layer any time of the year here in Florida. There's not really a bad time to do it. I used to think that you had to do it only in the summer, but you really can do it any time of year. It's a lot easier when you're doing it on trees that are kind of out in the open, or on a branch that's out in the open. But this is the branch that I want to do, so I'm going to do it on this branch. All right. So now that I've got that, I want to make sure that I am not leaving any of the greenish sort of bark on here. I want this to be shiny, like white, because it is pure wood. So I used to think that this part here was where the roots were going to come from. So I used to always try to leave a little bit of green, but I realized that was a mistake, and that was reducing my percentages. So now I'm going to make sure this is clean. Just scrape it, and you want that to be nice and smooth and clean. There's nothing left on there. Perfecto. Alrighty. Now that we got that done, I'm gonna get my rooting hormone. Some people like to use other things like cinnamon. I just go right with the rooting hormone. You can get it in powder or you can get it in liquid. I like the powder. Just kind of dabble it on there. And I'm really gonna focus on that top edge there and make sure I've got rooting hormone all the way around. And you really don't have to worry about putting too much. You know, there is no such thing as too much. You can just put it on there. So now, my next mistake, which is a small one, is not pre-cutting my string, because you really want to have a piece of string handy, because right when you do this, it's going to be hard to cut a string when you're trying to hold this bag on here. So I like to use a Ziploc bag. This was a bag that had some things come in. It's a little plastic bag with a zip at the top. I filled it up with peat moss. The peat moss is already pre-moist. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to take this bag, I'm going to cut a slit right down the middle like this, okay? I'm going to just kind of get that closer to me so I can do it properly. Okay, and all I've done is just cut a slit in the middle of the bag. This is where it would be nice to have a second person doing this with me, but I don't, so I'm gonna have to do this. But I'm gonna wrap it around so that that soil, that peat moss, is all the way around the tree. And I think I'm gonna cut that bag just a little wider to get a little bit more. You want to just make sure that dirt is exposed all the way around. And this is why you want to pre-cut your string, because otherwise it becomes very difficult to single-handedly tie this and hold this and cut a new piece of string. So if you have a pre-cut piece of string, you can get that first initial sort of tie on there, and then we're going to tie that a little bit more. But first I just want to get that on there. Swing this around to make my life easier like that. This really would be a lot easier. If you got a second person, utilize that. Okay, now we have that tied on there. So now we're going to get a little bit more string, and we're going to really give this a good wrap so that it stays stable. Now, up to this point, most of this is what I was already doing. But there's one last step that was, I guess, the final mistake that I was making, which I think was a pretty big one, because one of the problems I would have is there would always seem to be ants. Ants would seem to just kind of move into the air layer, and they would make a nest inside my air layer, which I think definitely reduced the success rate of the air layers. Sometimes there'd be ants in there and I'd still have roots, but a lot of times there would not be roots, and I think part of it might have been the ants. You know, ants generally, I don't think are that great for your plants to have too many ants around. So really squeeze out some of the moisture in this here. Don't want it to be too moist, but you want it to be moist enough. I'm going to put one more tie across there. Just to really get that secure around here. And I'm going to leave this on probably for about 3 months. Now, I generally don't cover them up. I've tried it both ways with covering it with foil, but light generally does not get through here. The last step, which is what I was not doing before, is wrapping it. So I'm gonna wrap this up with some, it's like saran wrap, I guess you could call it, or plastic wrap. Everything I got here, I got pretty much on Amazon. You know, you can find anything in the world on Amazon apparently. But I'm gonna wrap this up, and this is what's gonna keep the moisture in, excess moisture out, and it's gonna keep the ants from coming in. Because I think the ants definitely were not my friend. So you want to wrap this up nice and tight. You know, got a lot of this wrap, so I'm not worried about running out. So I can be very aggressive with it, generous with it. And you want to have that seal on the top as well as on the bottom, and that's going to keep your ants out, keep your excess moisture out, and that right amount of moisture in. When you have branches in the way, sometimes you gotta cut it and wrap it by hand around the bottom part. That's fine. And we're gonna leave that for about 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, we should have roots. And that's pretty much it. All right. Hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, follow me. I'm Andrethefarmer everywhere. All right. See you guys. Bye.